what if I told you that the most psychologically loaded piece of text we've ever analyzed on this deep dive isn't like a 400-page economic report
Yeah.
or, some massive trove of raw data.
Right.
It's actually exactly 7 words long.
It sounds totally impossible, I know, but those 7 words are doing just a tremendous amount of heavy lifting. I mean, they are completely engineered to bypass your critical thinking and to plug directly into your brain's desire for efficiency.
Yeah, so welcome to a highly unique deep dive.
Yeah.
Usually you, our listener, come to us because you want to avoid information overload, right?
Exactly. You want the shortcut.
Right. You want to synthesize a mountain of complex research to get the absolute most out of your limited time. But today, well, the challenge is entirely inverted.
It really is.
You've handed us this extremely minimalist source, one single solitary title, and that title is Mobile App Marketing, the 10-Minute Blueprint. That is it. That is the entire universe of our source material today.
And honestly, it's a brilliant exercise for you to listen to because titles in the digital age, they're highly weaponized artifacts.
Weaponized. I like that word for this.
Yeah, because when you scroll past a headline on your feed, you are making a subconscious judgment in like a fraction of a second. So deconstructing this specific title is a lot like taking apart a Swiss watch.
Just to see all the tiny gears inside.
Exactly. To see how the gears of human psychology and marketing anxiety and cognitive bias all just click together to capture your attention.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we have to start with the really hostile landscape this title is targeting, which is, the core subject matter in the very first half of the phrase.
Mobile app marketing.
Right, mobile app marketing. Before we even get to the crazy promise the author makes later, we have to look at the arena we are stepping into. And I keep coming back to this visual.
Oh, what's the visual?
Okay, trying to market a mobile app today feels exactly like trying to hand out your business cards on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange in, 1985.
Oh, wow. That is the perfect analogy, actually.
Right. It's just chaos.
It is. Because it's not just a crowded room. It is an environment completely defined by hyper-aggressive commercial intent, absolute sensory overload, and, people who are desperately trying to focus on literally anything else.
Right. You're not just asking for a polite moment of attention. You're fighting against rising customer acquisition costs. You're fighting these incredibly fast churn rates where, a huge percentage of your users just abandon the app by day 3?
Yeah, something like 70 or 80% sometimes. It's brutal.
It is brutal. And then you have App Store algorithms that just heavily favor established corporate giants. So you, listening right now, this technical reality. We're talking about an ecosystem where attribution is just increasingly difficult.
And the thing is, the author knows this too.
Right.
Notice how the phrase doesn't just say marketing. I mean, marketing is so broad. You can market a local bakery with foot traffic, or you could market like a B2B software platform with a 6-month consultative sales cycle.
Which is totally different.
Completely different. But specifically naming mobile app acknowledges this ruthless digital-first ecosystem. By starting the title this way, the author is utilizing a psychological tactic known as schema activation.
Okay, wait. Schema activation, meaning they are intentionally triggering like a specific network of associated memories and anxieties in the reader's brain.
Precisely, yes. The very moment a developer or an entrepreneur reads mobile app marketing, their brain immediately retrieves every frustrating article they've ever read about algorithmic decay.
Oh, man.
Every single dollar they've wasted on poorly converting meta ads, the sheer friction of just getting a user to actually download and open a new piece of software, it brings all of that pain point right to the surface.
It's like it's saying, I know the exact painful reality you are facing on that crazy 85 trading floor.
Exactly. It establishes relevance by validating the reader's anxiety.
So if I'm a developer, right, and I just spent 9 months coding an application, and I'm staring at my dashboard realizing I am literally drop number 10 million in this ocean of competitors. That phrase, it hits me right in the chest.
It really does, and it sets the stakes. The higher the stakes and the more complex the environment is, the more desperate the brain becomes in its search for a solution.
So they're teeing you up.
Right. The author is intentionally evoking that feeling of being totally overwhelmed to prepare you for what comes next.
Which brings us to the proposed solution. And honestly, the transition here is just completely wild to me.
It's quite a pivot.
It is. We've just established that this is a colossal, multifaceted, incredibly high-friction problem, and then the author drops the hammer. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The 10-minute.
I have to push back on this time frame because the audacity of that constraint is just staggering. Taking a 10-minute guide to app marketing feels like you're sitting in the cockpit of a Boeing 747 mid-nose dive, right? You're staring at thousands of blinking dials, and someone casually hands you a trifold pamphlet on how to fly the plane.
I love that. And what's fascinating here is the sheer mechanics of that temporal constraint. Like, is it literally possible to learn the intricacies of user acquisition algorithms, retention cohorts, and monetization loops in 10 minutes?
Obviously not.
Of course not. You couldn't even read the terms of service for the Apple App Store in 10 minutes.
Seriously. I think it takes 10 minutes just to scroll to the bottom of the page. So if we know it's technically impossible, why does it work? Like, why do highly intelligent, tech-savvy people still click on a promise that seems to defy the laws of reality?
It all comes down to cognitive load theory.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the human brain is incredibly calorie conscious.
Calorie conscious, really.
Yeah. It actively resists engaging with high-effort, complex tasks because they require massive amounts of cognitive energy. So when you introduce a massive problem like mobile app marketing, the brain's intrinsic cognitive load just spikes. You feel paralyzed.
That makes total sense. It's the information overload we try to help our listeners avoid every day. You see this massive mountain, and your brain just flat out refuses to start climbing.
Exactly. So the promise of 10 minutes acts as this psychological pressure release valve. It induces what behavioral economists call cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease.
Right. It bypasses your brain's natural resistance to hard work by drastically lowering the perceived barrier to entry. It basically whispers, hey, you don't need a marketing degree. You don't need a 6-month boot camp. You just need the duration of your morning coffee.
Wow. And, I theorize this is actually less about literally watching a clock and more about giving the reader permission to start without fear of a sunk cost.
Oh, that's a great point. Say more about that.
Well, think about it. If I commit to a 400-page textbook and fail to understand it, I've wasted weeks of my life.
Right. You've lost all that time.
But if I fail after a 10-minute blueprint, the cost is practically zero. It's a brilliant way of anchoring expectations.
The anchoring effect is definitely at play here. By anchoring the required effort to the specific number 10, the author is completely warping the reader's perception of the task's difficulty. And consider the specific choice of the number 10 itself.
Yeah, why not 5?
Right, why not 5 minutes? Or why not 60 minutes?
Well, I feel like using 5 minutes would cross the line from a shortcut into, like, a literal magic trick.
Exactly.
Learn to fly a commercial jet in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Completely undermines the authority of the subject matter. Just sounds like a gimmick or a punchline. Nobody buys that.
No, they don't. And what about 60 minutes? 60 minutes sounds like labor.
Yeah, that's a whole meeting.
It implies a lecture, a real commitment, a disruption to your day. 10 minutes, though. 10 minutes is the Goldilocks zone of digital consumption.
It's just long enough to be credible, but short enough to be frictionless.
Yes. It implies extreme density. It suggests to the reader that all the theoretical nonsense, all the academic fluff, has been ruthlessly stripped away, leaving only pure, actionable signal.
Wow. So by putting mobile app marketing right next to 10-minute, they are creating this massive neurological tension and then immediately resolving it.
Precisely.
They present this terrifying, high-friction dragon and immediately hand you a lightweight, frictionless sword to slay it with.
That is the architecture of a perfect hook. It is tailored flawlessly for the psychology of modern consumers who suffer from severe time poverty, but who still desperately want to be well-informed and capable.
That is just so incredibly manipulative, but also kind of genius.
It really is.
But speed creates its own kind of panic, doesn't it? I mean, if you only have 10 minutes to cross a minefield, you can't just be sprinting blindly in any direction. Speed without direction is just chaos.
Very true.
You need a rigid structure to channel that momentum. And I think that leads directly to the final word of the excerpt. Blueprint. So what does this all mean when they choose that highly specific noun? Why a blueprint?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the word blueprint is deploying another, even more powerful form of schema activation.
Using blueprint feels so deliberate to me because it strips away all the chaos of human behavior. When I think of a blueprint, I think of an exact mathematical architectural document that is drawn to perfect scale.
Yes. It belongs to the realm of physics and engineering.
Right. If you follow a blueprint to build a house and you cut the wood exactly to the millimeter the blueprint specifies, Gravity and physics guarantee the house will stand up.
It implies a deterministic system, if A, then B.
Exactly. But we're talking about marketing. And marketing is a stochastic system. It is inherently fluid, behavioral, and deeply unpredictable.
It's messy.
It's so messy. An A/B test for an ad creative that absolutely crushed it on Tuesday might completely fail on Friday because a cultural trend shifted, or a competitor outbid your lifetime value, or an algorithm updated silently in the background. You simply cannot draft a literal mathematical blueprint for human attention.
You really can't. But that inherent uncertainty in the digital market is terrifying for a creator or a business owner.
Oh, definitely.
Admitting that marketing is largely about educated guessing, constant iteration, and just adapting to chaos, that makes the reader feel entirely out of control.
So they are selling structural safety.
Exactly. They're selling safety, and this raises an important question about how we consume information. The word blueprint is deliberately chosen to project ultimate authority and guaranteed reproducibility.
Okay, yeah.
Think about the alternatives. The author could have called it the 10-minute guide or the 10-minute strategy.
Oh, that changes the vibe completely. A guide implies wandering. It implies you might still get lost, or that the author is just pointing out landmarks while you do the hard work of actually walking.
Right. And a strategy.
Well, a strategy requires interpretation. You have to adapt a strategy to your specific context. It takes effort.
But a blueprint, you don't interpret a blueprint.
You just build it.
You just follow the lines drawn on the page. It shifts the burden of success entirely. It tells the reader, hey, the incredibly hard part, the thinking, the testing, the algorithmic analysis, has already been done for you by a master architect. Your only job is rote execution. Just be the builder.
That is incredibly seductive for our hypothetical developer. Like, you've spent all your cognitive energy building the product. You are exhausted. You don't want to become a marketing expert. You just want someone to hand you the schematics so you can build the bridge to your users and be done with it.
It's the ultimate illusion of control in an uncontrollable environment.
It really is a masterclass in messaging. I mean, this 7-word title manages to promise the transfer of deep structural expertise from the author to the reader in 10 minutes, utilizing a flawless schematic that supposedly guarantees success.
It hits every single psychological trigger of the modern, exhausted learner.
It really does. Okay, let's sort of summarize the mechanics of what we've unpacked here, because analyzing this has completely changed how I look at the content in my own feed.
Yeah, it's eye-opening. I think the primary takeaway is recognizing the sequence of the psychological framing. First, you establish the hostile landscape.
Mobile app marketing.
Right, to validate the reader's pain and activate their anxiety about high-friction environments.
You acknowledge the insane noise of that 1985 trading floor. Then you introduce a radical temporal constraint, the 10-minute, which totally weaponizes cognitive ease.
Yes, it acts as an antidote to information overload by anchoring the effort to just a trivial amount of time, eliminating the friction of even starting.
And finally, you anchor that frantic speed with a promise of rigid, infallible structure, the blueprint. You offer the illusion of a deterministic mathematical safety net in an inherently stochastic, chaotic market.
It perfectly balances the presentation of a massive problem with the promise of a fast, highly structured solution. And for you, our listener, understanding these mechanics is kind of like acquiring a new superpower.
Oh, absolutely. As someone who seeks efficient learning and values their time, understanding how information is framed and packaged allows you to critically evaluate the bold promises made by the content you choose to consume.
It acts as a defensive shield against cognitive bias.
I love that, a defensive shield.
Yeah, because when you understand how a title is engineered to bypass your critical faculties by appealing directly to your desire for shortcuts and structural certainty, you can pause. You can step back and analyze the mechanism.
You don't just blindly click.
Exactly. You can ask yourself, is this source actually going to deliver a structural solution to a complex problem? Or is it just brilliantly exploiting my fatigue and my desire for an easy answer?
It transforms you from a passive target of clever marketers into a highly active, critical consumer of knowledge. Which actually brings me to one final thought. I want to leave you, the listener, with a bit of a paradox, something to really chew on long after this deep dive is over.
Oh, a paradox. The floor is yours.
Okay, so we talked about how the word blueprint promises guaranteed reproducibility. It's a standardized foundation. If you follow the lines exactly, you get the promised result.
Right.
But think about the reality of the App Store ecosystem. Think about that massive, chaotic stampede for attention. If this 10-minute blueprint is flawlessly executed, and it is as authoritative and easy to follow as it claims to be, then thousands of developers are going to read it and deploy it.
They absolutely will.
And if every single developer uses the exact same blueprint to market their application, they're all building the exact same house on the exact same street.
So doesn't the resulting conformity guarantee that absolutely none of their apps will actually stand out in the market?
Oh, wow. That is a really good point. Right. It's a paradox of efficiency. The better the blueprint works for everyone, the less it works for anyone. Conformity in a market built entirely on attention basically guarantees invisibility. Just something for you to mull over the next time you are offered a guaranteed frictionless shortcut. Until next time.